All right, we are live for the Friday edition of the Mike and Mario Show, aka M2 Show. Excited to be back. This is my favorite time of the week, not only because it's the end of the chaotic week, but then again, I get a chance to connect with Mario. So I appreciate you as always, man. How are you doing, Mario?
I'm doing well, Mike, and you?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Weather's changing a little bit, but then again, that's not going to stop me. Still going to try to get out and enjoy my weekend as best I can. But as always, we have a lot of interesting stories from this past week, as well as some things that probably look forward to in the future, both positive and unfortunately negative. But then we'll do the best we can to make sure everything is running smoothly. So for those who are tuning in, whether you're on Manico 64 channel or Rethinking a Dollar, hit the thumbs up button, show your support for the channels. And then also, if you don't mind, hit the share button, invite a friend so they can come along and get an alternative contrarian perspective on what's going on. And so I guess what we'll start off with, let's just welcome everybody. As always, if you guys have thoughts, ideas, suggestions, put it in the chat, highlight at Manico 64 or at RTD so it'll stand out. We'll get to it when we get to the Q&A portion, and we'll go from there. But let's just start off with just the metals activity from this week. I'm going to bring the screen up real quick and just talk about it a little bit. So I noticed just this past week, a downward trajectory of gold, 1867 right now, down 3.79 on a week.
Well,
Silver, go ahead.
Gold right now is spot gold, which I follow is at 1855. It traded up. It traded up earlier today to 1880. And then around a couple of hours ago, they slammed it down. Silver was trading up to 2357, and now it's at 2333. And as I said to you before we came online, this is just a psychological, psychological warfare, financial psychological warfare, in my opinion, to keep people away from precious metals because they want people to keep their fiat currencies in the bank. And the banks are actually in deep trouble. And how do I know that? Well, because bond yields are continuing to go through the roof. They have come off a little bit. So I've been through this over 20 years. I've seen these late Friday slams. No reason for gold and silver to come off. And they do. And all I can say is you need to be patient because there's a lot more fiat dollars out there, and there will be a lot more in the future than there is gold and silver.
Right. Very true. And what was interesting, how just looking at the differences in numbers here. So I'm looking at atmax.com. And so the numbers I have on my screen after I refresh them are different than your numbers. So then there in and of itself is some issues there because
it's just that I've got live prices actually.
Okay, so this is obviously delayed. I wonder how far delayed because the numbers were.
If you have a look at Kitco, theirs is pretty. If you go on Kitco, their charts are usually quite live.
Okay, I'm going to switch it up there because I don't like the fact that not only are the numbers not favorable, but I'm also look like I'm behind a little bit.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, as you were mentioning, just a Friday slam down is typical. But then again, when you think about the long-term game as to how we all arrived at this point, realizing the dangers of fiat, and especially this current moment, like in this country here, we have the looming shutdown as of the next 72 hours, which is going to be of concern. On top of that, you just mentioned the debt issue that the banks are going to definitely be impacted by. And, for the most part, we're already in a unrecognized recession, so by the time the actual, I guess, the main sources they tell us when a recession comes out, we're going to be well beyond that point. So it's not a good environment whatsoever. So we're looking at a price of physical metals is not like something to really hone in on. I just do it just because for those who might be new.
Yeah, what I would say is that when you buy like your home, and you buy it to live in there, you're not worried about the price. There is no market for home prices like an average home price that trades every day. And I think that's what they've done to gold, and they've done it since 1975. They created the gold future contract when gold became legal again to make it like a speculative asset and not something that you want to hold because it's real money. and that you shouldn't really be worried about the price. And of course, we are all, how can I say, victims of that short-sightedness. Because when I started buying gold in 2002, you keep an eye on the price, and you're always like looking where it is. And I think it's, yeah, we're all victims to it. But all I can say is that, yeah, it's not. I'm not gonna get rid of my real money and start financing Uncle Sam or
Right, right.
wars and everything. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. How this but not the government shutdown is going in the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah, so let me just jump into it then. Let me jump into it. So as of right now, let me bring it on the screen here. As of right now, where we stand from what I've gathered, there was a initial, I guess, a alleged plan put forth, and of course, it will not see the light of day. So the government shutdown fear grows as McCarthy lays out a partisan vote plan, and of course, it will not move one bit. And so heading into this weekend, by Monday, as always, we're going to have some issues where the government will be forced to shut down a couple areas. And so I think one thing that's different is that there's always been some pushback, but then within the Republican Party itself, there's something that I can't really sniff out quite. And here's a headline here. It says the radical Republicans willing to shut down Washington. And so you see the figures on the screen right there. But, the things that they're demanding to be in this, little spending bill is not going to happen, because it has to do with basically shrinking the government and cutting spending. And that's not what the government is going to do at this current moment, when the only way things can move forward as if they create new debt. So real quick, let me just thumb through. I tried to, let me get back here.
So
I tried to come up with
just a question for you.
Go ahead.
So is the government they've got till what? Till today's the 29th?
The 1st, October 1st.
So
apparently is a time
they're going to
frame.
be negotiating this weekend?
Typically, they probably will. They'll attempt to get together, but then again, what both sides are looking for, there's no There will be very little compromise until after probably the 1st, and then we get into next week. They're going to use that, the shutting down of this and that, the threat of people not being paid and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then the agreements will probably come more down the line. But at the end of the day, it's going to be more spending. That's that is a guarantee. Go ahead.
Yeah. What about though? I think the question here is about the fact that these bills, they're still putting all these line items in the same bill, so you can't vote on each item. And
Right.
I think, is it Representative Gates? He wants the money to stop flowing to Ukraine, and I think this is what this is all about. Do you think they're going to cut Ukraine out?
No, they've made it clear. They've made it clear, regardless of what happens with the U.S. shutdown and the monetary issues, Ukraine is off the table. And so I want to say, I did a real rant earlier in the week, and the number they put out there that was going forth is $6 billion. It was a $6 billion. Yeah, $6 billion going to Ukraine, regardless of all this. So that $6 billion is already allocated, is going. So now let's talk about everything else moving forward. So Ukraine is still on the table. That's it. It's not even debatable, according to the information provided earlier in the week. But let me share. Go ahead. Let me share. I'm gonna share this.
I thought it was. I don't know. I thought that Gates guy was adamant that he didn't want that to go through. But anyway.
So as of now, from what I heard earlier in the week, it was on the table.
Yeah.
And let me just share with you. So I'll go through some of the radical Republicans. The headline, of course, just be careful, but you get the point here. Huh?
FT will call people radical. Anyone that's
right.
following the globalist agenda.
So here's a couple. So what I did, I just extracted a couple key bullets to make it worthwhile, but I'll thumb through them real quick. It says a group of hardline Republicans in Congress is risking a government shutdown over budgetary demands, jeopardizing the U.S. economy and vital services. It says these Republican includes Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene are demanding massive cuts to government agencies, increase border enforcement, and reduce Ukraine aid in exchange for their support. Says Congress and the White House have been unable to reach an agreement on the funding legislation for this fiscal year. Says Kevin McCarthy, the Republican House Speaker, faces a tough decision, side with the rebels and risk damaging the party's reputation or strike a deal with Democrats, which could lead to his ousting. So reducing Ukraine, the border, and less government spending is what they're looking for. These radicals, according to the article here. But out of all those three things there, they may get one. It'll be some type of government budget spending, but it won't be Ukraine and it won't be the border. Those are two things off limit for the left in these negotiations, in my opinion.
Maybe we can look into what's happening vis-a-vis China and Saudi Arabia, because I thought that was really important. Usually we look at gold, the markets, and bond yields, but I think this is really important. The fact that they're doing Navy drills. Yeah.
So the fact that we have a government issue over here, possible shutdown, regardless of whatever's happening, the Eastern Bloc, they're moving forward with whatever they're working towards. And so China and Saudi Arabia to hold a joint naval drills next month. So I think this is interesting because up until the last year or two, we've talked about this. The U.S. and Saudi were buddies. But then again, Saudi has now opened up their partnerships with a variety of other countries. And prior to, the U.S. was a primary, military, backing of the Middle East, aka Saudi Arabia, with the petrodollar deal. But it looks like a lot of that is being minimized now or reduced. And so it allows other nations to come in there. So Saudi Arabia signed a deal with Russia for military weaponry. And now they have the naval drills that they're doing with China. And so this is, as you mentioned, more of the move away from the Western Hemisphere. And let me actually share with you a couple bullets from the article real quick and share your 2 cents on it. But it says China and Saudi Arabia to conduct a joint naval drill named Blue Sword 2023, focusing on maritime counter-terrorism, military cooperation in GME, Guangdong, Guangdong, China in October. It says Chinese Defense Ministry announced a second event joint naval drills with Saudi Arabia. The drills will include exercises on sniper tactics, boat driving, helicopter landing, and a joint rescue. So I'll spare you guys the rest. You guys can see it there. But Blue Sword 2023 is what it's called. I wonder how they came up with that name.
Yeah, I think it's really important because there's a lot of the paper tigers, the dollar bulls. They say that the dollar will still remain the world's reserve currency because the U.S. has the biggest navy and they can control the seas. But to me, the fact that China, Saudi Arabia are starting to do these kinds of exercises is very significant. And I think it's like a signal to the West, to especially the U.S. And so it's not just about accepting Saudi into BRICS and having swap deals, dealing in their own currencies and buying a lot of gold, but it's also defending the waterways, and I think that's important. And I'm not cheerleading China or Saudi Arabia. I'm just trying to tell people what's going on, because sometimes Americans and even British, we get only the news that we're told, and we don't look at the rest of the world and how significant it is. And that's why I think it's important that you come to every Friday to listen to us, and also to listen to us every day on our different channels.
Yeah. And I think that this activity, it really highlights what Putin and Xi have been talking about, and it's the need for a multipolar world. Now, whether or not we agree with it or not, whether or not we're, going to be in a position of favor, they're moving away. And so this right here shows that there are other military powers at work right now. And it's just not a U.S. centered, having military bases all over the world is becoming irrelevant, because when you have countries basically joining forces to unify their military actions, that right there signals strength amongst the Western Hemisphere, where people tend to be not so favorable of right now. So definitely something to keep an eye on, but it's just interesting how, they're moving forward with their agenda well beyond what we're dealing with on our side. So, all right, let's get into some more topics then. And on another note, I did bring this article up here. I think this is something that is worth talking about. Dianne Feinstein, California's longest serving senator, dies at 90. And as I mentioned to you, she was dealing with health issues for quite some time now, to where she signed over a power of attorney to, I think, some family members who were like basically willing her into the meetings and speaking on her behalf. And so there's a lot of pushback that she couldn't really conduct her own affairs, but she was still representing the people. And so unfortunately she's passed, but it just goes to show she's been in office since 92. And so it's like term limit. That's where we need to get back to, being able to actually get people in, get them out, because it is such thing as becoming, I guess, outdated or very biased in your thought processes. If you're a part of the different changes in the political sphere, if you're still in a seat, then, I mean, you're probably going to be swaying to what's in your best interest rather than the changing environment in your country. So anyway, what are your thoughts on this, man?
Yeah, term limits. I mean, in Switzerland, for example, the president there is picked for 1 year. There's like a seven person council. It's like a
Yeah.
ministry, and each and they pick one from those seven. So
Mhm.
I remember back when I lived in Switzerland, and probably even now, very few people even know who the president is.
Mhm.
And that's the whole problem. Yeah, I mean, they put term limits for after FDR, uh,
Yeah.
started his he's going for his fourth term. He
Right.
died, of
Yeah.
course, and then they limited it to two. So yeah, I don't think it will make much difference. I think
Yeah.
there'll still be corrupt. I wonder
Mhm.
how many hundreds of millions Feinstein's family made from her, being a senator.
Mhm.
And being a senator, what does that give you access to? Well, inside information, and you can
Right.
trade. You can trade, uh, you know, front run results for companies that they regulate, and it's the same
Mhm.
thing in Congress, in the House.
Yeah.
So it's a gravy train, unfortunately, and I don't expect things to change. But
Right.
one thing that I want to ask you, I'm not too I try to not follow politics that much. How
Mhm.
is the Senate controlled? It's controlled by the Democrats right now, isn't it?
Correct. Correct. Correct.
So
Correct.
this is going to be, I don't know how California is doing politically. They're going to have an election now to elect a new senator. That could be a risk to the Democrats. Maybe that's why they wanted to keep her there, because you could have a Republican win, and that could
Mhm.
change the balance in the Senate. I'm not sure how many seats majority they have.
Yeah, I don't follow too in depth myself, but I don't think it'll make that much of a difference. I think one
Yeah,
of the primary issues is that having to go through, seating someone else in the midst of this presidential cycle. That's something that
yeah,
they wouldn't want to have to deal with just because they got their hands tied with this upcoming election and making sure it's
yeah,
in their favor. However, they do that. So,
yeah. Yeah, right
but then
now,
again,
actually, the Democrats have 47, it looks like, and there's three independents, though it looks like they vote more with the Democrats. So they've got, yeah, and the Republicans have 49. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. It's getting
yeah.
pretty close there.
Very close. But then again, at the end of the day, we all know they're going to favor
Mm,
whatever's in their best interest over the American people. So let's get into some head. I'm gonna run through some headlines real quick, and we'll share our 2 cents on it. It says the U.S. consumer confidence tumbles in September as American anxiety about the future grows. And so the conference board said Tuesday that its consumer confidence index fell to 103 in September from 108.7 in August. Analysts were expecting a smaller decrease to a reading of
mm.
105. And so the numbers continue to tumble.
Yeah,
And I guess overall confidence is not that good nowadays. Go ahead.
that's a very important statistic. I mean, people in the markets look at that and watch
Yeah.
that, and you would have thought that the Treasury market would have rallied. Prices in the 10-year and 30 years would have
Hmm.
rallied with that,
Yeah.
but they're not. They're going down, and yields are going up, despite
Hmm.
the fact that I spoke about this morning in my video about the yield curve pointing to a recession. It could be
Hmm.
before the end of the year, actually.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's of course, the Fed and the Treasury, Janet Yellen, they're all going to say, "Oh no, we're going to have a soft landing. There's no
Hmm.
risk of recession." But I think it's coming, and
Yeah.
it could be very soon. Of
Yeah.
course, they will only announce it maybe next year, but I think we're almost in it already.
Yeah.
So yeah, and when you have a recession and the government is already up to here running 2 trillion deficits,
Hmm.
not in a recession. When the recession comes, it's going to get even worse. And I think many people are going to be surprised that bond yields are going to go through they're going to go through the roof. And if they want to stop that, the Fed is going to have to do probably 5 to 6 trillion in QE. They're going to have to come in. So
Yeah.
we'll have to see.
What's interesting is that like we've already witnessed them change the definition of a recession over the last year. All the indicators signaling that, based upon previous time frames, that we are in a recession. And so my question then will be, what will prevent them from shifting the narrative again or rechanging whatever the narrative might be for whatever indicator that flashes that is an obvious sign because we're currently in a unofficial recession, in my opinion. So the question is, like, we can probably be in a unofficial recession for however long until something officially breaks to where something actually gives, whether it be a banking fiasco, stock market, contagion, the credit market. I mean, the real estate, commercial real estate, goes belly up. So I think they can literally get away with this recession back and forth, talking about a landing for quite some time until something actually exposes the fact that we have a problem, Houston. Call in the troops now. We need, to reverse all policies, open up the spigots, flood the world. We need to get this thing back on track.
Yeah.
So that's more likely in the future.
I mean, you were talking about last year in 2022, GDP contracted in the first and second quarter. And that's a definition of a recession. And they said, oh, no, it's not a recession because we're going to change the rules. But
Right.
I think what could trigger a big crisis this year is beginning of November. We've got the FDIC. They published the third quarter data for the banks. The their unrealized losses and losses held to maturity, and those are going to be bad in my opinion because bond yields have gone up quite a bit, and they have drifted down in the last 24 hours. They smashed gold and silver. They bought the bonds a little bit. The balance sheets are going to look a little better because of some, they call it painting the tape or putting lipstick on a pig on the last day of the quarter.
Yeah.
But I think it could be sometime in November when those numbers come out and people realize, whoa, the banks are in trouble.
Speaking of which, Jamie Dimon is out being very vocal. And so JP Morgan's Dimon warns the world is not ready for the Fed's stagflationary response. And so one of the things he hinted on was higher rates for longer. And so if that is the case, he threw out like between 5 to 7% interest, 7%. I'm thinking like, whoa, like that right there. Like, can the world stay intact? Can the market stay intact? Can the banking sector stay intact? Can everything remain as is now with that type of those type of figures there? But real quick, I'll say this: it says Jamie Dimon, CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, known for his prior economic warnings, now cautions about the worst case scenario of stagflation and the world's lack of readiness for central banks' actions, particularly higher interest rates. He said he expresses concerns about the market's complacency due to monetary and fiscal stimulus and warns that rates may need to rise further to combat inflation, potentially reaching 7%, a level the world isn't prepared for. And so what does he know that we don't know, or is he just out here painting himself as the good guy in all this?
I think he knows what we know actually in the alternative. I mean, I've been saying for the last year that rates are going to go a lot higher than most people think. So it could be even more than 7%. Is the world ready for that? I don't know. Well, the financial world, that is, we should be ready for this, hopefully, because we've been, trying to do the right thing, not living beyond our means, stacking. And I still think stacking is important, despite what's happened to gold and silver today. Do you really want to have a lot of fiat currency in the bank? You might need to keep some for expenses, but I wouldn't want to keep too much, seeing what happened in March. And I think the crisis that could trigger the recession could be in the banking sector, because if you look back in 08, 0809 crisis. That crisis actually started in early 2007 when the first subprime lenders started going belly up. So it takes a while for things to come through. So I think there's a lot of banks out there in trouble.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, so between now and that potential 7% or higher, like definitely the banks, can't continue to take the amount of losses they're taking now, and so either there's another Federal Reserve Treasury program put in place to help stop up that those issues, or they decide to say, hey, enough's enough. It's going to go down, and let's see what goes on from there. But speaking of gold, let me get to another article here because this is in your neck of the woods here. It says gold and silver investments jump as people hunt for better returns. And so this came out. It just basically says the Royal Mint notes a 17% rise in first-time precious metal investors in the first half of 2023 compared to the previous year. It says investments in gold have increased by 10%, while investments in silver has risen to 16% year over year during the same period. So looks like the UK community itself looks like they're getting their weight up as well, according to these figures here. So,
yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, more and more people are waking up. I still think, very few people really know about gold and silver, and most people that do think it's risky. But it's good to see that things are picking up. But yeah, Royal Mint, they have a good website, but the problem is that they sell to the dealers and you sometimes get a much better price from the dealers than from the Royal Mint.
yeah.
One thing I wouldn't do with the Royal Mint, they have a digital gold that you can have an account with them, and you keep the gold with them. I wouldn't trust that because it's a government company. So yeah, never keep anything with the government.
It's interesting how they're still coming up with all types of products. What else we got here? Let me see what other topic we got here. You sent me let me see, pull this up here from Ron Manley.
That's really interesting, that, isn't it?
Let me zoom in so I can read it. There we go here. Okay, it said it appears that let me get rid of this. It says it appears that the U.S. Treasury gold in West Point Depository, 1681 tons, is still in a location swap with the Bundesbank gold at New York Fed Vault 1236 tons, and at the Bank of England 445 tons. So Germany has a claim on all the gold in the West Point.
Yeah. Why is that interesting? Well, because a lot of the 8,300 tons that the U.S. is supposed to have in reserves, some of it is in West Point. So it looks like they might be double counting the gold at West Point. And they're saying, oh, so it's Germany's and ours at the same time, which is impossible. It's like saying, my gold is the same as yours, Mike. It's either yours or mine. And I don't think the U.S. has much gold in terms of it being unencumbered. And why do I say that? Because when you or I or you guys buy gold and silver, what do we need to do to be able to afford to buy gold and silver? Well, we need to run a surplus every month, i.e., we got to spend less than we take in. And with the surplus, we can buy some gold. But if you look at the U.S. current account deficit since the late 60s, it's always been in the red. So how, so I would say that that's why there's a rush for gold, because other sovereign countries know that the U.S., they're in the red. So they need to buy gold because the U.S. is what are they going to have to do to reflect the fact that they have no gold? Well, they're going to have to close out all these leases that they've done, like to the Bundesbank. And what that's going to do, it's going to drive the price of gold to unimaginable levels. So which means I think they might physically have the gold in Fort Knox or West Point. And I guess they have an army and an air force and a navy to defend that. But the countries that supposedly have gold and they have it at the Fed or somewhere else or at the Bank of England, I think they should be worried about it. They should, and that's why I think they're buying a lot of physical, as we've seen since 2022, especially.
I think I think it was years ago when you and I both were talking about how nations were, for some reason, I think it was 2017, 18, they were really rushing to repatriate as much gold as they had as they can. There was apparently on in the vaults throughout, the US. And of course they were saying it'd take a couple years, whatever.
Yeah,
Some got theirs back, some didn't. So the fact that now they're talking about they're still foreign
yeah,
gold in on U.S. vaults will let me know that you would just don't
yeah,
expect nothing. It's
yeah.
too late.
I think it took Germany 3 to 4 years to get some of it physical gold back. And
Yeah.
you might ask, why all those years? Well, because the U.S. had to close out those leases, and
Mhm.
they couldn't do it too quickly because it would have driven the price through the roof,
Yeah.
and that's why it took so long. But in 2011, I think was it Chavez at the time was president of
Mhm.
Venezuela.
Mhm.
He repatriated like over 100 tons, I think, from the Bank of England. It was physical, and he
Mhm.
said, and I think he said to the Bank of England, "I want it now," and it got there in months.
Yeah.
So if Venezuelan gold can get from London to Caracas in months, how come gold that Germany has at the New York Fed or West Point can't get to Germany in months? You
Right.
know, so I think that was one of the reasons why in 2011 gold went to 1900 because of that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
is it any surprise that a few years later or a year or two later, Chavez, he was relatively young. He died of
Yeah. Got sick. And yeah.
cancer.
Right.
We've seen from I think it was a congressional testimony in the 70s with the CIA, and they
Mhm.
said that they could, uh,
Like a dart gun, a dart.
trigger diseases on people.
Yeah. 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 It's unfortunate. And then also, I remember hearing stories about when the gold arrived back on foreign soil during inspection. They were like, "These aren't our bars. Like, these aren't the bars we sent you." It was just beat up bars. It was like, okay, so literally they were scrambling. And of course, we know Libya, Gaddafi, his gold. I mean, all the Saudis, Saddam's gold. So those good, they got claimed, they got dispersed probably. So, all right, what else we got here? Last one here, then we get to some Q&A. Also, uh, a tweet from Robert Kiyosaki you sent me is about the CBDC coming. Privacy gone. Big Brother will be watching when CBDC centers market gold, silver, Bitcoin, and cash will become priceless. Start saving GSBC and cash now before it's too late. It's funny how he labeled us all together. GSBC
Yeah,
all together.
he misspelled gold as well.
Right, I saw that. Go,
Gold.
got.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, I heard someone say that when you won't have cash, like paper money. Actually, cash, the paper money used to be a promissory note, and the true definition of cash would be gold and silver or specie, but and that's a different topic. But yeah, I think when you basically at the mercy of the banking sector and government, they could turn you off any minute,
Yeah,
uh, and you can't have cash. I think having some silver, and gold
yeah,
is going to be key. And it might sound, well, no one knows what silver and gold is, but that's why we do what we do, and we try to get together, with people,
yeah.
maybe sometimes physically as well, and
Mhm.
maybe go visit a farm and see if the farmer likes gold and silver. I mean, you might not need gold because it'll be so valuable. You could buy maybe interest in a few thousand cows, but
Right.
but silver, you could go with a $50 and buy some eggs,
Yeah.
for
And also the older generation, they're aware of gold and silver. You know what I'm saying? They've gotten away from it, but they're aware of it. So the
yeah,
learning curve, I think, in the midst of some chaotic times
yeah.
would not be long. It wouldn't be hard for people to figure it out.
Even the younger generation, I think they are becoming aware too, because a lot of them, they are on social media and they see a
Mhm.
lot of this.
Yeah.
I would argue. So yeah, I wouldn't count them out either.
I think they would definitely prefer to use crypto in that regard
Not
if
all
it's
of
if
them,
it's
I don't
available.
think.
Not all of them, but a good portion of them are being steered that way.
Oh
And
yeah, crypto, I still think is a psyop to keep
yeah,
people away from real money, and I think it's also a way for a lot of corrupt power elites to, how can I say, launder a lot of their ill-gotten gains.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's get to some Q&A. Let's get to some questions, man. What else was out there? What, we of course talked about a variety of subjects and shared our 2 cents on it. But what are you guys keeping your eyes on? Feel free to let us know. Highlight at Manico64 or at RTD so it'll stand out and we can jump on it. And let me know what you see, if anything, Mario, on your side.
Yeah.
I see a lot of back and forth in the chats. Let me see.
Yeah, guys. Ask any questions if you want through the chat.
Sirkan says William Middlecamp also talks about this as of late. It looks like he is being asked by some big institutions to write articles about this. Sirkan, what exactly about about CBDCs or what? Oh, they said Cuba never got gold back from the UK. Cuba never got gold back from the UK.
Venezuela. Well, no, they still have a few tons of gold with the Bank of England, but they got most of it out in 2011. Living the dream is saying BOE still holds Venezuelan gold, yeah, but not much of it. They got most of it out back in 2011.
Yeah, here's another comment about Robert Kiyosaki. He says he's fear mongering about CBDCs constantly. I wouldn't necessarily say fear mongering. Like, I just think that, he's literally speaking his truth, but also giving warnings as to the initial, I guess, the long-term plans for further centralizing the money to where it's now on a private ledger controlled by the same entities that issue the currency, because it is programmable. If it's programmable, they can do things on the back end that we can't imagine as of yet. So I don't think that's necessarily fear mongering, but just more so just giving people a heads up.
I don't think it's fear mongering either. I think it's trying to wake people up to the fact that once we go into a CBDC system with no alternative, we're basically slaves. We've got no privacy, and we can't control. They can control us. They can turn us off. They can limit the amount of money you spend, or currency, really, because it's not money. If you spend too much on certain products, or if you travel too much, they're going to say your carbon footprint is too high. So there you go. I think he's right to warn people, and I think Nigel Farage has warned people, and I think it's going to get worse as the system unravels. And I think the system is unraveling. By that I mean the monetary financial system. We're seeing a lot of how can I say, censorship now here in the UK. There's it's similar to Fox, but it's a new channel called GB News. They're just kicking out a lot of reporters or journalists there that are kind of talking the truth. The regulators here, Ofcom, they're cracking down more and more. So
the best example is Russell Brand. Literally, his allegations of him having some issues with his personal life, and they're calling for deplatforming him. And Rumbo's the last company standing strong, but then again, it runs a chance to ruin their business model if they don't comply. So, here's another from Sirkan. It says, I think it looks obvious at this stage that the only bullet left for central bankers to reliquify their balance sheets and erase the losses is to revalue gold in multiples of its current fiat price.
I think so. Yeah, I agree with Sirkan, and I think that's what the Chinese are doing, because the Chinese know this is going to happen. And what do the Chinese hold a lot? Well, they hold like $3 trillion in reserves. And I think that's why there's been Kissinger. Let's say he went to China. Hank Paulson was there. They're probably working together. People think we're at war, kind of war with China and Russia, but I think there's just a lot of negotiations going behind the curtains, like in smoke-filled rooms, and they're negotiating who's going to get how much gold, because they're going to have to revalue everything. like Sirkan said, because the debt. If you look at the price of U.S. debt, the 30-year, for example, that was issued in 2020, it's gone below 50. So someone who bought 30-year T-bonds at 100, now they're losing half their money. So
pension funds.
and what's his name? Jamie Dimon said it's going to get worse. So these countries that are holding the bag, they say we want something. So that something is gold, and I think he's right.
Yeah, pension funds. Like, think about the pension fund are the biggest holders, one of the biggest holders of all that liability. So I think it's going to be some issues with that. Probably by next year, we'll hear more about pension funds being insolvent and whatever.
Yeah.
But Chris, appreciate you, man. Says, what are the odds the great taking occurs as depicted by the author in his recent book? How would the average person react to the confiscation of their securities, real estate, and investments? Could you say revolution? Thanks. The great take. I didn't read the book, so I don't know.
I can answer that. I mean, I did a video on it, and I've got quite a lot of views on it. Yeah, that's not a certainty that will happen, but there's a good chance it will. And as an individual, Chris, all you can do is take in the information and act accordingly. Some people will have a risk profile different from others. I personally try to keep very little in the system. So if there is a great taking, I don't think it will affect me that much. And even if it does, it won't hurt me. It's not something I lose sleep over. But yeah, it could be, there could be a revolution because a lot of people depend on their pensions. And basically, that's what it would be, going after all the securities in your pensions. And they use that as collateral for the failed too big to fail banks, because one day all the quadrillions in derivatives will blow up. They'll have to reliquify it. And what David Webb, the author, says is that they're going to use your securities. They'll steal it basically to back all the badly gone derivatives. There's another question here, Mike, that I saw. Where is it? How much gold? I wanted to answer this from Josh Lineker. How much gold does the Bank of England have, and would it be enough for a new currency? Did you see that question? Or
I got it on the screen.
Yeah. So the Bank of England, the UK has just over 300 metric tons of gold, but the Bank of England itself holds about 5,000 tons for other sovereign nations. So if we are looking at the UK, 300 tons wouldn't be much. So there's always enough gold for a currency because gold is money. It all depends on the exchange ratio. People think, oh, there's not enough gold, but at what price? We could see the UK, just like the US, use the law of 90%. Possession is 90% of the law. Countries are stupid enough to leave their gold here in the UK with the Bank of England. That 5,000 tons. We might. The government here could basically confiscate it.
Here's some charts I pulled up on current whole gold reserves for different countries. And so I was trying to find the UK.
Western Europe is on the top left. Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
The UK, 310 tons.
Yeah. So Germany appears to be leading in Western Europe, huh? According to these figures here. We go to the bottom. We got Brazil's leading with 129.6 tons.
Yeah, Brazil bought quite a bit. They almost doubled their holdings a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if they're still buying it, but yeah.
Yeah, everybody got something. Everybody holding on to something.
Yeah.
They're holding on for a reason. What else we got here? How much gold does the U.S. owe UK? Is that,
well, I looked into that. you can go back. I think it's in trading economics, and you can see what dollar reserves the UK had in 1971.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the time, uh, the UK was able to get 600 tons of gold. Um, how can I say out of the
Back out.
U.S.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Nixon closed the gold window, and they still had about 1,200 tons, I think, or even more with the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Even Brazil, I think it was even more, like 2,000 tons. The UK,
Yeah,
even Brazil had like 1,200 tons. That and the way I calculated that was that I took the dollar reserves divided by 35 because that was the price that you
yeah.
could get an ounce of gold. So I think the U.S., if you go back to 1971, they owe people a lot of gold, and all at $35.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's an interesting question, though. Yeah, they owe not just the UK, but a lot of countries.
Sounds like a bill that'll never be settled
Oh
because they're
yeah,
and not getting that gold back.
it was temporary, wasn't it? Nixon said we're
Right.
going to close it temporarily.
Here's another one that says, Mario, have you heard about UK citizens are cashing in some of their pensions to pay their bills?
They probably have. I mean, the when you turn 55 here, you can take 25% out of your private pension tax
Mhm.
free. So yeah, I'm sure some people have. Yeah.
What else we got here? The beer came in strong. Appreciate you. Here's says, what would the gold price have to be in the UK to make it a viable currency? Did we talk about no
I
gold
think
price?
it's probably over 10,000 pounds. I mean, but what I think is going to happen is that everything is going to implode, and they're going to reset everything. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we should be worried about the price of gold in pounds, because the pound and the dollar, the euro, they're all dying currencies.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to focus more on the purchasing power. But I think the price, if there was going to be a revaluation of gold in pounds and in dollars, it would be, yeah, it would be a lot higher in pounds because we don't have as much gold, even though we're not really sure if the US has that much gold either.
Right. Here's another question. Says, do you think our currency will be ultimately be asset backed? Yeah, the probability of that happening between now and all this stuff blowing through, not likely. I don't even in a reboot of the system. I don't think
Did he
that's what they
say?
want to
Did he
do.
say our currency or?
It just says, do you think? Yeah, our currency. Do you think
Well,
our currency?
it's not mine.
Right.
My currency. That's the way you have to think.
Right.
Uh, it's not your currency. You might have to use it, but what you should really think about, you should be your own central bank and stick to real money, real currency, gold and silver. I mean, gold and silver, they were currency too, and they're still currency because you could pay someone with gold and silver.
Mhm. Here's a question from Jeff. You says, Mario, I found you through Cliff High and BTC way back. What changed your mind?
I find you through CliffI and BTC way back. What changed my mind about what? I don't understand the question.
About just crypto in general. You mentioned earlier about
Oh
your
yeah,
thoughts about how
no.
it can buy out.
What changed my mind about crypto? I mean, I always used to tell people that yeah, invest in crypto if you want, but be careful. Don't put
Mhm,
too much into crypto because it's very volatile. But then in 2017, 2018, I started seeing like Goldman Sachs and a lot of Wall Street hedge
mhm,
fund people getting involved. I saw that they created a futures for Bitcoin, and then I thought to myself, well, this is not an organic,
mhm,
currency. This is,
mhm,
yeah, it's compromised, and that's why I focus on gold and silver. I don't think, yeah, I sleep more soundly at night having gold and silver than having any crypto really.
mhm. Yeah, I
That's
think
what changed
crypto's
my mind.
it's
But
going through it's going through its go ahead. I'm sorry.
Cliff High, I think he's got some interesting points. I mean, his what he does, his analysis is interesting.
Mhm.
And I listen to him once in a while.
Yeah, I've witnessed it go through the change as well. And Once I realized that they're now going to start financializing that entire sector for their own benefit, that's where I'm thinking like, it used to be about disruption. Now it's about financial institution adoption. Like always, whenever they get involved, whenever the big players
Yeah.
get involved, they always find a way to manipulate it and take it over.
Oh, yeah.
So
Because
there's going to be a window of time, I think. Go ahead.
Crypto was supposed to be an alternative to the corrupt financial system, and now it's like getting married to it.
Right. We need like they're begging for clarity and they're begging for institutions and to come in. Right. So my thing is, if it's organic and if it's real, if it's meant to succeed, just be patient because the currency is going to implode on themselves, and people are going to then run to alternatives, gold and silver, and Bitcoin if it's legit, if it's worth having.
I don't need to beg Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley for an ETF for silver because I've got it. So.
Here's another question. Everybody's situation is different, but I don't want to mispronounce your name, but it says, how much gold or silver is enough? Ballpark figure.
Well, I always tell people, how can I know? I don't even know where you are, your circumstances. Gold and silver are just savings. So what the question you need to ask yourself is how much savings do I need to put aside for a rainy day? Or that's the way to look at it.
Right. I look at it like it's
not speculation.
Right. As a savings vehicle, but then ultimately as a hedge against dying fiat. So therefore like an insurance policy.
Oh yeah,
so
of course.
When you think about if you're trying to insure your entire lifestyle, everything around you, and it's based on a dying currency, what type of weight would you want to set aside that can help you compensate for those losses if there is a catastrophic event? And then also allow you to be better off on the other end of that. So
hopefully you won't have to insure anything because you'll be getting out of this Ponzi system. Really, that's what it is. I mean, I still have a little bit in the financial system, but not much.
Right, enough to survive off of in the short term. Let me see. Here's one from Stevie J. Says, how do you think short selling of precious metals will occur if we are to be on the future accountable blockchain? That's a good question. On the future accountable blockchain, and that's where I don't think the system in of itself will. Okay, everything will be tokenized in the future, sure, but then again, at that time, I'm not quite sure gold and silver how they're going to still manipulate it. Then also have it to where it's something that they can benefit off of with the futures market. So I don't know how it's going to work out.
I think the blockchain is a really bad idea because they will know everything you do. So hopefully I'm not going to put my metals in the blockchain, but I mean, they can manipulate anything, these people.
Right. Yeah, so Lewis says if they are messing with the gold and silver prices so much, that tells you the place to be.
Yeah, you're right.
They're afraid of it actually. That's what go. Security metals, security blankets, metals. What time we got? All right, we're about 50 plus minutes. I said we probably can go for another 30 minutes if we needed to. But let's get it dial it back as always. We try to stick it to well under an hour just to make sure we get as much as we can in. So if you guys enjoy this content, enjoy getting some feedback back and forth, definitely join us next Friday and bring some questions, and we'll try to get to more things within the time frame we're allotted. So Mario, what's coming up worthwhile? Anything on your end? You got an event this weekend tomorrow, correct? You want to tell people about that? Or
well, I'm going to go to in London. There's a coin exhibition. They have it every year. And it's really interesting. They have numismatic coins. They also have some people who sell bullion coins there. So I'm going to try to make it in. There is a train strike into London, but I think I can get there. It's £5 at the entrance. And they only take cash at the entrance for payment, which is good. I highly recommend CoinEx.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So have fun with that. So if you're in the UK, check them out tomorrow. Other than that, other than me, just hang out, relax, and just enjoy the weekend, man. Try to unplug as best I can and get ready for next Monday because, as always, it's going to be something to dial into. So, as always, people appreciate you for blessing us with your presence, your time, and everything in between. Hit the thumbs up button and support the channels. And once again, we'll see you next week, same time, same place, Lord willing. Peace.